All right, now we've reached the point where we're ready to officially download DBT because up until this point, we've set everything up, we've got all our prerequisites, and now we need to get the DBT project on our local machine. So, how can we do that? So, the first step we'll do is go to getdbt.com. This is the official website for DBT, and we will go to documentation, docs homepage. And here we can see install DBT core. And ultimately, this is what we want because this is that core open source DBT project that we can use for free. So we can see here there are three options. If you have Mac and you have Homebrew and you're familiar with that, there are options for that. You can quickly get it from Homebrew. We also have pip, which is what we'll use, which is the Python affiliated package manager, so to speak. And the other option is from the source. So if you have issues with any of the other options, you can go directly to the source code, which also happens to be hosted on GitHub, download it and follow those directions to get it working the way you want. But like I said, in this scenario, we will use pip because it will span across anything that uses Python. You're not really dependent on a specific operating system. And let's do use pip to install DBT. And here we can see a couple options. So ultimately, the command we'll run will be a pip install and then the name of the adapter. In this case, we can see it's dbt/adapter. The default is Postgres. For our case, we're going to want Snowflake. And if we look here at available adapters, we can see there is a Snowflake adapter, and the command will run from py, which is pip. Again, if this is all new to you, it's Python. Just understand that all we need to do is find this particular command, and that's how we will install it. But before we do that, I do want to point out one thing. There's something here that says, what are the best practices for installing DBT core with pip? And it's something called a virtual environment. And essentially what that means is it's going to create a specific place, a specific environment, so to speak, where what you install is just unique to that place, to that container. And it's called a virtual environment. So if there's specific versions of something that you want just for a specific environment, you can set it up that way. I'm not going to get too far into that, but just understand that's usually best practice when working with Python in any fashion. So we'll do the same here when installing DBT. We'll install DBT into a virtual environment. So step one, create a virtual environment. Step two, run that command to install DBT. So let's get started. The first thing we'll do is we'll create a new folder because we want to store all of our GitHub information in one place. And typically what I do is I create a folder called GitHub, and that's it. Just documents, GitHub, or desktop, wherever you want to store it. Just a blank directory called GitHub. And now we can close that out. If you come into your editor, so in our case, Visual Studio Code, select open folder, and let's go find that GitHub. And that's it. It's going to be empty. Obviously, there's nothing in here yet. You can close this. And in this folder, we'll create our virtual environment and where we'll ultimately start building our DBT project. Okay, so to actually run any of this, we need a command line. We need some sort of terminal. And that's why I really like Visual Studio Code. So if we right click here and select open an integrated terminal, down here now, it's created a terminal. I'm on my Microsoft machine right now because this is where we did all the prerequisites just to be safe. And we can now work with this shell here. So what we'll do is first create a virtual environment. I'm going to copy this. And instead of just copying it in there, I'm going to double click here so we can paste it. That double clicking opens up a new tab. So what we'll do is copy this command here and just paste it in. And this may work for you or it may not. In my case, it didn't work because I don't need the Python 3. It just needs to be regular Python. So this would work for me. And just to explain what this is, we're running a Python command. We're using the built-in package, which is venv, which is for creating virtual environments. And the name of the virtual environment is dbt env. You could call this whatever you want, but we'll call it this to keep it easy. And we can see up here, it's creating it. And that's all set. So we've created that, but what do we do with it? To actually get in there and start installing things within the virtual environment, there is another command we could run, and they have that here, which we've copied up here. And again, if you're on a Mac or a Linux, this would work perfectly fine. But in our case, this isn't going to work because I'm on Windows. So again, you could run that. But if we look here, it's trying to run this activate file. But in our case, we don't have a bin file. We have what's called scripts. So we need to adjust this a little bit for Windows. We also can get rid of source. So again, this is Windows specific. Scripts activate, and this will activate this virtual environment. And if you see this within parentheses, that means it worked. That means you're now operating within your virtual environment. So now that we're here, we can install DBT, and we can run that one command that we mentioned we want to do for Snowflake, which is pip install dbt snowflake. So copy that, and we will now run that within our GitHub folder. We're in the GitHub folder, but it's all happening within the context of the virtual environment. Paste that and let it run. And I'll pause the video because this might take a little bit to actually finish. So it completed and it installed, and that's it. So that is how you install DBT. And we can double check that by running the command dbt version. And we should see it pop up for us. And there it is, installed version 1.0, up to date. And that's it. So DBT is now installed within the DBT env environment. And if we can see that it's true if we go deactivate. Now we're outside of the environment. We run the same command. It doesn't exist. But if we rerun that command to activate it, now we're within the environment again, and it exists in here. And that's it. So now DBT is installed locally on our machine. We're ready to start initializing our first project, which is what we'll do in the next lesson.